we're live. I want to mute myself and then get started here. Awesome. I guess we're live. Welcome, everyone. I am super excited to have you all and a very, very warm welcome. I hope you have all had a great conference so far, and I'm super thrilled to be hosting this panel where I get to share the metaphorical table with some amazing people here. Yeah, really excited to be hosting this panel. In the last year, a lot of people, I've had so many conversations around with managers around increasing diversity and the challenges they have been facing. So I couldn't wait to jump on this opportunity to host this panel and have a conversation with some amazing folks we have and amazing achievers within tech that we have today. Without further ado, I think it makes sense for me to introduce everyone first. I am Laksh Ranganathan. I am the Director of Product Operations within Bitrise. What that means is I work within R&D, and the focus for our team is to empower our value streams to deliver on the product strategy. So that's sort of what I do. I wanted to introduce our amazing panel. So let me start with Lei. Lei Wang is an engineer, director of engineering within Salesforce, leading the Slack team, and is very, very passionate about operational excellence and helping people develop and shine. Lei, did you want to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Lei Wang, and I'm Director of Engineering on the Slack team in Salesforce. I lead teams to transform Slack to serve various lines of business like sales, service, and marketing. And our mission is to make people's life simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. One fun fact about myself, outside of work, I enjoy singing. I take voice lessons, and I am also singing with a community church choir.
Oh, amazing.
Really nice to be part of this panel. Really excited.
Oh, we're super excited to have you, Lei. Next on the panel is Yangjin Long. Yangjin is a user research manager at Meta's Reality Labs, and she leads research on a number of aspects of the virtual reality headsets and the software associated with it. So super, super interesting. Yangjin, did you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Laksh. So yeah, my name is Yanjing Long. Like Laksh just introduced, I'm a UX research manager at Meta's Reality Labs. So I support a team of research managers and UX researchers to help design and develop the software experiences for Meta's VR headsets. So I'm also a new mom to a 3-month-old boy. So I'm on parental leave. So like during the past 3 months, I have been polishing my diaper changing skills and also adapting to my new identity. So I'm super happy
important skill.
Very important survival skill. So I'm really excited to get out of my routine right now and join this exciting panel with amazing women today and to share a little bit of my experiences.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking that time from your little one. We appreciate that. Next up, Madonna Wambua. Now, Madonna is one of the speakers here today as well, and you'll probably hear her after this session. But Madonna is an author, Google developer, expert within the Android side. She's a senior Android engineer and a host of a podcast called Tech Talks with Madonna. So long list, Madonna. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Lakash, for introducing me. I feel like you said so much about me. To add on that, I'm also a mom, 2 boys too. So if you need any kind of like tips, reach out to me because I already changed the diapers. I think I have actually 8 years of experience now. Yeah, that's about me.
Awesome. And last but not least, we have Jacqueline de Grauta. who is the founder of April Festival in Amsterdam, and is also focused on recruitment for app development within the app development space. She also is creating a podcast and would love to hear more about it. Jacqueline, did you want to give us a quick overview of yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. You already said a lot. Indeed, I come from the April Festival, which I started in 2012. And after 10 years, everybody was asking me for if I could help them with work. So I'm also a recruiter of app developers in Amsterdam. And everything I do is about inspiring people and connecting people in the field of app development, from idea to the app store. And yeah, that's about it. I do indeed, I do a lot, but that's not I also organize training, soft skills training for app developers, and indeed speak on the podcast with developers. But yeah, it's all about hiring diverse teams. So let's go to that subject.
Awesome. And you're being very modest. You do a lot of things. But let's talk a little bit about that. We have collectively a very interesting journey into tech, all of us. I mean, for example, I started as a developer, which is a standard journey for someone who grew up in India around that time. Tech was the thing. But as I figured out that I was really interested in it, that journey then morphed into consulting and into products. So I've made quite a few turns along the way. Jackie, you have a very, very interesting start to tech. Would you like to share a little bit about it?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I started my career as a professional art director and designer, or illustrator, and then this led me to teaching and coaching, and I ended up being head of a small computer school where I started designing courses like graphic design and media courses. And in 2010, I got my first iPhone. That was a magical moment. I was so overwhelmed with all the opportunities this instrument or this offered. And I designed a course, Build Your Own App. And then nobody came. So that was a pity. So I thought, when I'm going to organize it again, maybe in half a year, and then I can make some marketing for it. And at the time, in half a year, it was the month of April. And then I thought, okay, then it's spring, it's holiday in Amsterdam. So it's a good time to organize this event. And if you add the P to the month, you have the subject and the time, which is really good in courses. And from that, the April Festival started. And maybe it's funny to know, when I started with this festival, the banks in Holland didn't even have a way to connect with an app. You had to log on with your computer to transfer money. So
I
was there
that.
really in the beginning. I had no idea what app development was about, but I was so interested in all these new ideas and all these people who were able to execute it. So this is where I started. And maybe it's also good to know, because I'm the organizer of the festival, I was always communicating with the app communities in Holland, in Amsterdam. So we had at the time the Android user group, Coca Heads, the Flutter user group we have Amsterdam with Mike Lee. So I always involved these communities within the festival.
Yeah, so, amazing.
It started a bit strange, but yeah, I just I just went with the flow and ended up here.
What a journey! What a journey! Yanjin, you have a psychology background, don't you? Tell us how you got into tech.
Yeah. So I grew up in China, and I have always been very interested in human behaviors. So that's why I chose to study psychology in my undergrad. And then I decided to move to the US for graduate schools. I was still doing psychology for my master's, but through that program, I learned about this new field of human computer interaction, which is like interdisciplinary field that combines computer science, psychology, like behavioral science, and also design. So like all three things were super interesting to me. So I decided to pursue a PhD degree in that field at Carnegie Mellon University. So there I continued doing research, but with much more of a focus on user-centered design and evaluation. So after that, I continued my academic career and did a postdoc at the University of Pittsburgh. But more and more over time, I felt like I was more interested in the application of the research, really seeing the real world impact, how we can improve, the experiences of our users through better design or, just other ways, making more user-centered, not technology-centered. So back then, I applied for a job at Facebook as a UX researcher, and then I joined the company in 2016. I first started working on the app side, helping improving the experiences of our Android users in emerging markets. India was a really big focus for us,
Yeah.
like how to improve the experiences with lower band internet connection and also some Android devices. So that was really eye-opening, like learning about different culture and then different user behaviors. And then I became more and more interested in going back to do more about new technology. So I transferred to the virtual reality teams after a couple of years. And then since then, I have been doing research and the leading research in the field of software experiences for virtual reality. So yeah, so for me, it's more like a transition from academia to like more the industry world. And it's really interesting, like I said, like super exciting to see like the real world application of how we can use those research methods to help improve people's experiences.
Yeah, and the virtual reality industry is exactly where you want to be, isn't it? Because this is where you see that interaction go that tenfold. So
yeah, it's especially important. Yeah.
yeah, super interesting. Lei, did you know that you wanted to be in tech right from the start?
No, not really. So when I was little, math was one of my strongest subjects. And I grew up in a university in Beijing, China. And my dad was teaching math at the university. And my mom was a local, she taught math in a local high school. So I think there was definitely parental influence here at play. So
I can relate.
majored math and computer science during the first 2 years of college when I was in China. And then in my junior year, I transferred to the US to continue my studies. And then eventually I earned a master's degree in computer science from Stanford University. And then after that, I worked at Oracle and Salesforce. So for the first 9 years of my career, I mainly focused on backend and application development. But then later at Salesforce, it turns out that I'm pretty passionate about front-end development, which I was not totally like, there wasn't any exposure to front-end when I was in school. So I think that's like one major lesson I learned is really try different roles, try doing different things to identify your strengths and passion. And so when I was a UI developer at Salesforce, I started a UI dev meetup forum where I try to bring people together so that they can talk about their development challenges and then we'll help each other out, right? So I think that's where like I see a need to improve a situation where we don't have very strong front-end development expertise. And then I just organize a forum for people to learn and help each other out. Also started initiatives like UI Sparkle session where like UI engineer will work with designer hand in hand for rapid mobile interaction design. So that results in us shipping mobile features a lot faster. So I think the key takeaway from that experience is you don't really need any permission to be a leader. When you see a situation which needs to be improved, you can just drive that forward. And that's how I developed leadership skills without having a manager title. And I think it definitely helped me when the opportunity was available to me.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. I can so relate to that. It's just when you work in a place where you're allowed to take those initiatives, it just changes your whole perspective on what you like and what you want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So how did I become an engineering manager? So I was working on a startup project in a newly formed department where we didn't have a lot of processes and structures in place. So things were very chaotic and my teammates were getting burned out. And I stepped up during that time to take on the Scrum Master role and basically help the team organize the work. And so looking back, I think I was really just gravitating toward activities which were aligned with my strengths, like responsibility and helping others. And like years later, I took the Clifton Strengths Finder test and, oh, okay, I confirmed those are my strengths. And it totally makes sense why I did that, right? So that's the beginning of my engineering manager career journey. And over the years, I worked on various products and also in different departments within Salesforce. Also learned from managing both ICs and managers. So I think it's been a really interesting and fun journey for myself. I like to use nature as metaphor because I've been trying to do more outdoor activity. So think of it as a river where I'm skipping onto stones. And as I land on a stone, I will take my time to stabilize myself until I become very comfortable. And then I'll look around me to check on the current and check on the other stones around me and see where I can go next, right? So in conclusion, I feel it's more like an evolution to me. So keep exploring and keep stretching yourself.
Oh, amazing. Great advice for anyone who's sort of stepping into that direction, for sure. Madonna, did you know that you always wanted to be an Android engineer? Is that where you started?
Actually, that's a no. And in fact, I never even thought about being like a software engineer. So my first dream or my dream was to be an aeronautical engineer because I was fascinated by the planes. Because I was like, wow, how did they make the planes fly? Like, how is this thing flying up there? That is super cool technology. And I really wanted to get into it and understand how it works. But unfortunately, everything we wish when we were little, it's not what we get when we're older. But actually, right now, I always say that when I get time, I will go back and kind of like just take pilot classes just to feel the thrive. But I know I'm way gone to be an aeronautical engineer. So, so I decided to actually pursue a different dream. That is after my father gifted me with a phone, and I was able to see how the phone would work, and I was interested too. Like, wait, how are they making this? So I think to me, it's the curiosity that always brought me to tech. And I kind of like realized that actually, when I learned what languages they were using, I was like, wait, they use languages to write these things? This is amazing. It's like a computer too. And then when I was little too, I kept watching one channel all the time. Even my parents knew DSW. Like there was this particular show about how things work, and it really interested me a lot.
Yes.
Yes, I would watch it all the time, like how things work, because I really wanted to understand how are things working. Because to me, just bringing these ideas together and building such cool stuff was really interesting to me. So I ended up getting my phone, and there was this snake game I saw, and I was like, wow. How did they build a snake game? I was like, yeah, I want to get into game, because the first app that I built actually was a game for my kids, like a math game. I'm also a math fan. I love math a lot. And I decided to build a math game for my kids where they would just play math. And then once like they get it correct, it would do, psh, you won something. Just a funny thing, like a
Yeah.
character. So that's how I stayed in Android. And then now I found my community and I found my voice. And now to where I'm even writing a book about the stuff I've been working on for all those years. And then started hosting Tech Talks with Madonna, where I will bring more women to tech. Because over the years, I've been in different companies, but I've not seen so many of us. So I would like to bring more women as we go on. Tech, it's super amazing. So that's what I would say. That's my journey to tech. So it's not what I wanted, but I'm here and I love it.
But you got there. And
I got
we're
there.
all glad that you're here.
Yes.
That's for sure. So this brings me to the next topic. So someone lays sort of like what you said. I love sort of using nature as example. And someone, I think probably a couple of years ago, as we were talking, they were talking about, when they were talking about diversity, they were saying that think of it like a garden. If you really want to have a garden with different types of plants and different types of flowers, what you need to do is invest in the soil so it is able to provide nourishment for all of these different types of plants that you want to grow. I guess what I'm trying to get at is you can't. I mean, it's great. I think diversity is the outcome that quite a lot of people are trying to get to. But if you don't invest in the foundations, sometimes it becomes harder to get to that outcome. So what I wanted to do is just ask you, Madonna, maybe I can start with you to see what have you seen, where you have seen that, where you have fostered, what helped, what was the environment like? What was that investment which helped create that environment where diversity could increase diversity, or you felt like you were being given the opportunities that you should?
That's a very good point. And I do feel like one thing that I want to acknowledge for a fact is that companies now are really trying hard to make sure that there's diversity. But one thing that I want to mention is that to me, I feel like diversity doesn't have to be just by the company. Diversity is us all. For instance, for me, I feel like I created my own space by finding a community that is an Android community where I felt safe. I felt like during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, is so hard because we couldn't go to the office. And let's say I was working in VR, and building that stuff with Airco is not easy. And then you cannot keep pinging your work colleagues all the time. And also when you Google that stuff, you cannot find it. So what really helped me a lot is having a community of people you can talk to about Android stuff and discuss, like, okay, so how would you approach this particular situation if you're working? And that really helped me a lot. So to me, I leverage that power of having different people I talk to, and it's really helped me a lot. I feel like even though we don't work in the same company, I feel welcomed, I feel supported, and there's somebody looking up for me, like somebody rooting for me to win all the time. It's the same when I gave my first keynote at DreadCon New York. I was very scared. That was my first keynote but I was very surprised to know that everybody was just cheering for me. Like, yes, like we see you, we are there to support you. So what I would say is that yes, indeed diversity is happening at workplaces, and it's still a work in progress that all of us need to embrace. And as we do that too, creating communities where we are inclusive ourselves too is very important. Like, even though the companies are working so hard to make sure that everything is diverse, because diversity is very broad when you think about it, right? Because I remember we had Deaf Fest in New York the other day, and we had a very great guest who actually founded Women Take Makers. And I remember she was telling my kid that the person that designed the watch before, they did not think about women like wearing the watch, because the wristband was so big, they were meant for men. So when you think about that particular situation, so what it means is we need to make sure that even in those processes, the hardware, the software itself, let's be inclusive, and we create a better world by being inclusive. That's what I would say. Because I feel also, I'm going to leave because I know all the attendees today, they have stuff to talk to say too. So
yeah, no, I can so relate to the watch example. I suffered because I couldn't get my first smartwatch because they were all too big for my tiny wrists. So eventually, I think it was Motorola which came up with one that worked for me. So yes, it took a while before I could adopt it. So totally get what you're saying. Jackie, with your recruitment hat, what are you seeing? What's working out there?
When it comes to diversity?
Yeah, in terms of just creating an environment, and in sort of creating an inclusive environment, what strategies or what's helping people out there, do you think, to build a more diverse environment?
Well, I came up with some tips which I share with you on the end. But what I do in my personal work is to create a safe environment for people to come to the events that I'm working on. For example, we have a code of conduct, and I could imagine that if you are a company, you have something like something like that, but then with a mission. So I think Laiwan has a mission if you work at your company, yeah. So we have that as well when you come to the event. I think it also helps that I am not from a typical tech background, so if that always opens doors. I've been working with a colleague. She's not from a European background, so she has a color that also helps. So if you work in tech and you have a diverse team, that opens doors and people feel more at ease with you. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. So basically, what you're saying is creating that approachable environment where people feel like they can be open and be their own self, isn't it? Yeah, that's so important, especially when we think about products as well as when we think about environments like conferences and events, for sure.
Yeah.
Yanjin, from your perspective, what has worked in the past, thinking about teams that where you flourished? What's worked in the past?
Yeah, first, I really want to echo Madonna's point about the power of community. I think just like so powerful. Like as a new mom, I benefit so much from other moms as a community or moms in tech. Sharing all kinds of how they coped with the challenges, the anxiety, or dealing with like juggling between different identities and adapting to the new identity. So I really want to echo that, the power of community. Going back to your question, like what I have seen at the organization, I think at Meta or at Facebook, I felt like what personally helped me the most is really the culture of encouraging everyone to be their authentic self. We each bring in, a very different background, a set of identities that come with us. Like for me, back then as a new grad, like that was my first job, and then there was language barriers that I'm not a native speaker, and also as a woman coming to this new tech field, and also as someone who just transitioned from academia to the industry world. So I had a lot of anxieties, and I didn't really know how to survive here or how to behave or how to set myself up for success. And having people who really cared about me and invested in me and encouraged me to just be my authentic self, bring my own strengths and everything to the work, and contribute it in the way that makes you feel the most comfortable, and not just to living up to other standards. I think that safe environment and basically giving you the license to be yourself and feel comfortable with that was really helpful. Like one good example is like I'm like an introvert, and I'm just not used to do public speaking or talking, at a big meeting or speaking up about my opinions. And then my managers back then just encouraged me to, find other ways of expressing my opinions or being part of or influencing others in other ways. Like I liked writing, and I felt like I had a lot of practices in writing when I was in graduate schools. So they said, then why don't you use that strength, right? You can write very well. You can write you can influence other people in that way, or you have a really good skill that doing one-on-one meetings, and then you are really convincing that way. Why don't you do more of that? So that just makes you feel really like, okay, there are other ways that I can just use that to do what I'm good at and still achieving, like the influence or like being able to really work with other people. So I think that very healthy culture was the most important thing for me and what I have observed from the organization. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, especially that whole thing about having a safe environment. That's so basic for everyone, isn't it? Because when you feel safe, then all the doors open at that point, and you feel more confident about taking on new challenges. I can echo that for sure. Lei, from your perspective, what has your experience been?
Yeah. First of all, I really just like the story that, or the talking
The
point that.
gardening one?
Yeah, no, actually, Yanjing's point about diversity,
Oh, yeah.
because there's so many dimensions of diversity. I think we tend to think about how to get more candidates, but I think I really appreciate the approach of focus on the team, like current team composition, right? Without even thinking about recruiting, how can we bring out the different qualities in individual, different strengths, right? And see.
Yeah.
And I think I use a strengths finder as an example where in the past, I have a manager who basically give the strengths finder test to all the leaders in the team. And then we pull all the strengths finder result into one sheet, right? So you can observe, okay, who is good at that, right? So if I'm not really good at influencing or like getting people on board, I'm going to partner with another person, right? So we can, get this done, right? So that's a strategy that I have been using a lot, is really to be aware of my own strengths and the areas that I need to navigate. And then also be aware of, for example, my PM partner, right? What she is strong with. And so like together we'll form a better partnership when I am aware of the diverse qualities that we are both bringing to the table. So that really helped.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I always think it's so much easier to focus your strength in the right direction than learn something that you're just not comfortable with. It's so much easier when we bring different strengths together, because then the effect can be amplified much better, as opposed to trying. I mean, working on weaknesses is great, but it just takes that much effort, and the marginal impact that it has is lesser than when you bring strengths together. So yeah, I really love that point, and thanks for bringing that whole experience around Strength Finder as well.
Yeah,
I know
so I want to.
Go ahead.
I want to just share a quick success story that I've observed on one of the Salesforce team that I worked on, and that team was Quip team, and it was a startup that was acquired by Salesforce. So the Quip team cared so much about DEI, diversity, inclusion, and equality, that it started a forum called DEI Council, which is basically a group of people who help to drive DEI initiatives for the department. And so over the years, we did a lot of projects like diversity hiring and increase leadership diversity, and other things like mentorship and advocacy program, where we were prioritizing minority employees, so that they will have more, so they will be prioritized in terms of getting mentorship from a senior leader like the CTO or VP of product. So that really helped. And I think what I really liked about the program is that it will collect ideas from everyone in the company about what we should be focusing on for the DEI initiatives. And so it involves everybody, and the program is put so front and center, to the point like we will provide DEI updates before any business or project updates, right? So to me, we are really like bringing DEI weaving it into part of the corporate culture, instead of just doing one or two things, but it's really just part of the DNA. And that's how everyone is like, we're creating a shared identity and instilling a really strong sense of belonging. And when people feel that they belong, we also like retain talent. So the average tenure of the Quip team, Quip employees, is 5 years, and it's pretty impressive from my perspective.
Yeah.
So I would say that's really an underestimate benefit from driving sponsoring or supporting DEI initiatives. It actually helps with talent retention.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's key, and it has been key in the last year. So I think having a program where you're listening to people makes all of that difference, isn't it? Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's just an amazing story right there. So, I mean, I know I wish I could just go on and on, but I want to make sure I have time to ask a question to help the audience, because at the end of the day, I think we're all looking for strategies of things that we can implement within our team, not having to depend just on the companies and their initiatives. So I wanted to go around and get get a sense for what would you recommend to people in our audience who want to make sure that they increase diversity within their teams. Maybe Yunjin, I can start with you. I'm keen to hear what is that thing that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think it's really good to see that more and more companies started doing things like the DEI initiative, or being more explicit about this is the focus that we should we should focus on increasing diversity and inclusion. But I think one takeaway for everyone, I think, is more like, don't assume that that is just the responsibility for the leadership and for hiring managers. I think it's more like it's everyone. Everyone should keep an open mind and really take that as your responsibility. So I think by keeping an open mind, I mean, is like really be open to learn and be an advocate to learn really why it's important to have a diverse team, and inclusion is also important, and also to learn how to help, no matter what your role is, how you can be part of it. So I think if your company already have trainings for, how to be an ally or how to increase diversity in your team, definitely take those trainings and encourage others to do the same. If they don't have that, try to be an advocate. And then let's say, okay, let's maybe spend, a few hours every quarter. Let's get together and learn something about it, right? Learn something about this topic or sharing your experiences. So like really be part of that. I think we already heard like some great examples why it's important. Diversity makes your team more efficient and effective. It's important in product development. Like Madonna gave that amazing example about the watch. So, learning about that and really internalize that and sharing that with your colleagues, other teammates, and also learn how to do it. Like once you internalize, okay, this is important, how I can help and how I can be part of it, like how to be an ally or how to help recruit or refer, people, to help them, lower the barriers, get them into the field, what I can do. So really take that agency and really be part of that, changing the mindset, I think would be my takeaway for the audience.
Awesome. Yeah. Change starts with you, isn't it? Excellent. I love that. Madonna, what would you recommend?
So I'm going to change gears a little bit here because I feel like Yanjin gave a very good example. And I'm going to go to a part that maybe I feel like has not been explored a little bit. So like Yanjin mentioned, she's a mom and I'm also a mom. And one thing that I've noticed is that we're going back to now like not so many virtual events, not back to in-person event, like not so many online. And one thing that I've noticed is that either you bring your kid and then your kid gets to attend the event with you, or like what I'm aiming at is I want to see an inclusive environment where there's a thought process of, yeah, we can actually have moms that can be organizers, and we can also have moms that want to attend certain conferences. Don't make it a barrier such that we have to start thinking about, where am I going to leave my kids, daycare? And I feel like those are barriers that any caregiver, we have so many caregivers because caregiving is different in very different ways, right? Like you can be caregiving for your mom or your old parents or so many things, right? We need to create that environment where even if it's not reimbursing, let's find a way to make it more inclusive to many people to come to listen to it. I mean, it's okay, they can listen online too, but would it be better knowing that that's not a barrier, that they can actually come? Food for thought.
Yeah, I mean that is so important, because one of the reasons we all love these events is the networking aspect of it. And a
Yes.
lot of people miss out on that because they have these other responsibilities.
Yeah.
Opening the door will help build that network for so many who
People, yeah.
can't. And that's not just specific to women. That's just specific to, I mean, that applies to so many people at so many levels. So I really love that. And I think food for thought for people who are
Yes.
organizing events for
Organizing, yeah.
sure.
Yeah, because it's not
Thank
about just
you.
women. It can be even dads, right? Like, where am I
Yeah,
going to leave the kids?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lay, let me go to you. What would you, what advice do you have?
Yeah, I think from the operation perspective, because I'm kind of lately thinking more about operational excellence. So one thing that I think worked really well for organizations is to prioritize and manage diversity and inclusion initiatives, just like any other important projects, right? So it starts with setting clear and measurable goals, and then come up with plans and take actions, and also track your progress and progress, along the way through metrics and data. And don't forget to celebrate successes and wins with the company or your department, because that will further strengthen the culture that values diversity and inclusion. And so I think that's an operational model that I think worked really well.
Yeah, let's take what we do during the day, doing our day jobs around metrics,
Exactly.
and apply it to this, isn't it? Yes, absolutely love that. And it's such an easy thing to do for us as well. So love it. I was going to ask Jackie, what would you recommend? But I know that you have a few takeaways that you would love to share. So maybe we should go to that. And there you go. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, as a not native speaker, I thought it's easier for me to write it down and to say it like in a presentation. So what my findings are. So I have 9 takeaways for you to hire most productive teams. And if you go to the next slide, you will see why we need a diverse workforce. In the link, you can find the McKinsey report that having a diverse team leads to increases revenue and profitability. And I think who doesn't want that in their team? So to start with my takeaways, you can go to the next slide. So my first takeaway is practice what you preach. So if you want a diverse team, hire a diverse HR team. That's, I think, where we all need to start. And the second thing is you need to step out of anonymity. Oh, I hate that word in English. So what I mean about that I know people or companies that I work with, they have a diverse team. There are women in the team, but nobody knows. And I think I use this point when I talk to candidates. And I tell the candidates they have more women in the team, and I always get really positive reactions if I share that. So if you have a diverse team, and it doesn't, diversity is not only about men or women or color or background. It's also about age, for example. If you have a diverse team when it comes to hiring young people, but also older people, that really helps. So show it to the world if you have a diverse team. My third one is get your team involved. I mean, you can have a lot of ideas about hiring a diverse team, but I think you should also involve the team and see what kind of ideas come up with this. And the fourth, I have nine. So the fourth is, I see a lot of, when you talk about women, as Madonna already said, having a kid can be hard, or when it comes to flexible hours, it's nice to have a flexible work time. So if you think about the job and you're able to offer flexible work hours, that would be really great. So more women can apply. So think out of the box and not stick to the 40 hours we have here in Europe. A fifth one is what I discovered organizing the festival, that a lot of companies are not really thinking about the tech community, the local tech community. I really advocate to support your local tech community, because these groups are really helpful in sharing knowledge and inspiration. But it can also be a talent pool where you can meet new team members.
Yeah.
So please do support your local tech community. Give them money, give them room to, or a space even to host their event.
Yeah.
But that's it. You don't always have to give money, but there are more ways to support the tech community. But I really think that is where you meet new people. And then I come to my sixth point. When I see people who doing it really well, or companies who do it well and organize their own meetup, I see a lot of difficult titles, really technical titles, which as a non-technical person, I'm not really keen on going there. So my advice, if you want to meet new people, if you want to open a new talent pool, make it playful. Organize a fun day. Keep it accessible. Do something different than really high standard technical program.
Yeah.
So then I come to the next point. It's not what I said before. It's not about always about culture. It's also about life experience to the team. So I really advocate to hire the 50 plus developers, because they bring a lot of experience, knowledge, and not always. You can also think about they could be a father figure for a young developer. They don't offer only work experience, but also life experience to the team. And then I'm already there. One of the last things is like stop hiring people like yourself. So I have had really good people who were really a fit to the job, and the whole team was younger, and they didn't hire this person. And at the end, I think a lot of teams, they want to hire people that look like them. So please, before you enter an interview, write down for yourself, stop hiring people who look like me, and be open for people who don't look like you and who have different qualities. And then at the end, well, nobody's bulletproof. I see. So I changed it on the end. So, okay, we're all humans, and with our ups and downs. And don't forget to be kind towards your candidates, and give them. I get a lot of candidates who don't know why they didn't got hired. It's a small world. At the end, you don't know where you meet people again. So please be open and kind to the candidates you meet. So these are my takeaways, but maybe there are also people who have questions in the audience.
We actually have a couple of questions, and they're quite related. So maybe I'll quickly jump to that. The first one, it's not to anyone specific, but I think we touched on it a little bit. Perhaps this might be something a couple of you might want to take. The first question is, what can companies do to create an inclusive culture in order to retain and grow a diverse workforce? We touched on some of it. Perhaps one of you want to address that?
I actually want to add one more thing before I let my other panelists answer. And I think, to me, one thing that I wanted to mention is that I feel like we need to also make sure that we don't encourage. It's called the the bias, like unconscious bias. Because sometimes we do end up being biased without even knowing. So we need also to be conscious, knowing when we're having a bias towards something and act on it. So that's something I wanted to add.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. No, that's so key. Absolutely, for sure. Any other thoughts for our question around what can companies do? Unconscious bias is one. Addressing that perhaps through trainings, I guess, is a great one. Lei, Yanjin, anything that you have seen within Meta or Salesforce that you want to add?
I think we touched on several points of that in the Jackie's slides. Very good summary. One practical thing that we do is also like recruitment drive or like referral drive. It's like people get together spending, half a day and just really, exploring in your network and recommend people, sharing with our recruiting team, these are good candidates. We should really reach out to them. Also just time for everyone to get together and share, other ideas, what we can do, where we can find these candidates. And usually it's also a good event to just create a sense of belonging. And sometimes we invited like external speakers to come to talk to us about other strategies or ways they have seen successful. So it's a combination of learning and also practically trying to search for good, diverse candidates. Yeah.
So one thing I would highlight is try to is looking in the space of non-traditional background candidates, right? Because I think it's really helpful to consider people who are changing career, getting out of an education or skill building program like a coding bootcamp. Because from my personal experience, we definitely had success recruiting from that direction too. And also like within your organization, I want to emphasize, look within your organization, be supportive to people who want to change roles, right? So we have successfully converted people who are in support role into like engineering roles. So I think just look in those space as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, all great advice. Unfortunately, as with these panels, it's never enough time. I can't take the last question, and we're being told we have to say goodbye. I wish I didn't have to. But thank you so much. This has been amazing. What a conversation. And I would love to continue the conversation offline as well. Huge thank you for taking the time today and joining us. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank